Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 18th of September. Well, we saw this happen the other day. Was the first of the lower shakeout readings, and now we're actually opening into negative territory on the shakeout. From a daily standpoint, we ended up with the short steel falling below. The steel long short-term buyers, but the orange crossing above it. At the same time, it had crossed above the green in that, with the sign still above. A little bit bearish within that configuration, certainly amplified itself as we've moved across here and seen short-term buyers fading after their long run, just to keep prices afloat and slightly rising from that 76%. Once it broke the ABM yellow, which I guess we can put those values up. Always good to see it at 28.97, so right around the 2,900 number, and caused a brief breakdown. Of course, the rising 76, so now where we supported the 76 there, it's now much higher than it was, well, relatively speaking. But the rising lows going to put some downside pressure to try and pull price a little bit closer to that level. But most of this is the geopolitical, like we talked about before, heading into the election. You've got things happening, China tariffs, you have the whole FISA declassification thing that's taking place. All these have significant impacts on where traders view things as going, and how heated things are going to be for a potential change from Republican to Democrat for the House. All these things have a real significance because they really make a difference policy-wise, which really can impact the market in a significant way. Now, obviously, the serious growth that's taking place certainly helps mitigate that, but it doesn't mean we, at these lofty levels, can't have significant downdrafts. You can see the NASDAQ broke down a bit more significantly from that original one. In fact, now you have cyan above green on that DOC with a continuation of steel fading. And in fact, a little bit more movement from cyan, and you'll actually have what would be a solid short snake. I mean, obviously, I like these breakdowns. Anytime you get these crossovers, they're always important to look at because they represent a fundamental change in the balance of who's in control, and it's always critical. So, Euro at continuing to move to the high side of the range, and it's outside the band of it, but back up to its previous highs, and this is just suggestion that there's a stability, and there's this widespread belief that the dollar is overvalued because of all the potential problems that exist. So that could be significant play to the opposite side when people realize that maybe there's going to be continued growth, that temporary tariffs don't necessarily mean a trade war, blah, 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 blah. So that's going to be going around for quite some time, so not really anything to get overly excited about. Treasury's obviously still elevated, but anytime you get a decline in the market, people look for a little safety, and that's where they head to. Oil still in a little bit of a decline mode there, but started to pop back up, and if it breaks out from these current levels, that poses some added risks to inflation, and that which really would start to create a spiral, because you have two components there where you devalue the currency, which the market usually prices in by increasing the overall market. I know, but yet if it goes too far, then it's a negative catalyst to growth, and that would cause things to pull back. So, but you're getting no movement in gold, which means there just isn't that excitement. And some of this has been, like I said, the gold trade and what was the Bitcoin and that kind of trade had kind of moved to oil earlier part of the year as more of a safe haven and liquid. And then, of course, we were looking at Bitcoin in these massive moves. Interestingly enough, at the same time that you have the declassification, you've had this massive pool of Bitcoin wallet that had just been kept quiet. It was like $1 billion worth. All of a sudden has been selling in significant tranches, trying to hide itself. For those of you who see this little P2 signal, it's it's a part of the setup that I've been using to make alterations to the original DOCON paint, which is what this is. What it looks for is red DOC pivots, meaning it turned up, and then it looks for a second higher pivot, and that's where the P2 shows up. So you've got a lower pivot and then a higher red pivot on the DOC, indicating that strength is building. Captured pretty much the right spots here, so can be effective, but it will be an opportunity to eliminate some of the early buys, because you'll be able to look for P2 at the same time you have an actual green crossover with the orange dip, those kinds of things. So that'll be a fun one. Now, you won't end up seeing the P2 in that. It'll just change the colors of the candles, and it'll just be a seamless thing that won't even be noticed, so to speak. Let's look at the intraday action from yesterday. It was really a nice day. We started off with the gold here towards the end of the day in what was a bearish snake configuration. Pretty clean. There was no real question about it. Actually, it turned into an alien here with the cyan above green and the red tongue for the alien, which produced that gold candle below the well, in this case it closed below 38%, but slightly above the 23, right on line with this 2905, which happened to be a previous positive extreme histogram retrace, so serious algo activity at that particular spot. And while it produced a couple little pops and rolls, we ended up just mostly with short signal configurations within it. It just couldn't catch anything until it started to spread right here. Just a little bit, which is more than enough to create that snake move. So the first part of it was literally right here, and you had full confirmation by the time you got there. But if you can see that spread, what happens is the steel breaking down below the orange, and this time the cyan wasn't exactly in the middle for perfection, but pretty darn close. And then right after that, you had a gold candle below the, we're right at the 23%, which was, you had to wait a little while, which can be frustrating, but sure enough, it did move to the lows. There was no change, no reset of the steel until right here where you get the crossover with the dip that produced a little bit of a buy signal. Didn't produce much of a buy, but hey, there's nothing you can do about that. You don't get to control what happens here from that 2901.75 until you get the short signal, which is at 2904.75. So if you complain about 3 points, you complain about 3 points. It's okay. But at that particular point, you're at 0475, having just made 3 points, only to watch, price dip all the way back down to the 99. So another 4. So you just start adding 4 here, 4 there, 4 here, 4 there. This was another 5 plus. From this one, it was easy, 907. And then we dipped all the way to the 99, so that's 7 points on that one. So you get a 7, a 4, a 5. Then you ended up with this beautiful short that took place again. So you got a secondary snake split right there with the tongue going right in the middle, and then the green also collapsing, which is double bonus. And that one was at 99 and dropped all the way to 92, so another 7 points on that. And then right before the close, perfect setup again. This was a little early. Probably could have waited one more bar if you wanted the confirmation for this full snake. I like seeing those greens cross below, and this was a clean alien setup with cyan above green, green going below red. That happened to be right there at the 96 level, and then you watched as we dropped to the 84 level. So again, it's pretty decent point range. So from when you do that 96 to 83, it's a 13. So it's. And then it was massive by turnaround. I actually should have marked that one right here. Right above the 23%. So even if you wait to cover on a situation like this, for me, I get a little concerned when I'm making lows and I'm not dipping below the red line like here, where I'm expecting a retrace of the low at this particular point. Once these start coming in, I start to look for, okay, have I reached that hot point, and that's where I usually start to think about, okay, if I'm going to get any kind of sell signal, which in this particular case came right about there, where the steel was going there, which a little more than halfway between the 23%, and then of course turning around to a full buy setup there. Took a little cover off the red dot, filled in that retrace pretty darn fast. It wasn't unexpected there, and you can see we're just ending up with the beginnings of a short snake. The tongue's just about to pop into the middle right there. A little early as far as the green having collapsed all the way, so could fight a little bit back and forth, but started getting kind of overbought early on, and I think we'll see a pretty decent retrace back into it, probably down to at least the low right here. So that's certainly something to be watching out for pre-market, if anyone wakes up in time to see it. So, as always though, trade well. We'll talk again later.